I thought, oh my God, my kids, right? So the second I thought that, I was transported 210 miles away to Fresno, California, where my oldest daughter, who was 21 at the time, was taking an exam in her class in college. And I saw her, I saw the time on the wall, I saw what she was wearing, and I was like, she's fine. And then I'm like, my little one, Lucy, who was barely going to be two, and I see her in the waiting room in the hospital playing Legos. I was alone, but I wasn't alone. Like, I don't know how to say that. I wasn't scared in any way. And then I saw myself. So I see a version of myself standing in front of me all of a sudden, and she looks like me, but not exactly, but very like a doppelganger situation. And in my mind, she said like one word to me. And that one word was coded with so many messages within it. And it's still unraveling today. And my all I came back, and now I can like hear things that I probably didn't I could hear before, but not as much and as often. I actually went and got tested to make sure I didn't have anything wrong with me, like from like lack of oxygen to my brain for those 6 minutes. I went to USC here in Los Angeles, and I had a psychological assessment done to make sure that I wasn't schizophrenic or whatever. And nope, um, I just now can hear random stuff, and now like I see much more.
Good evening and welcome to Earth to the Other Side. My name is John Glasspool. I'm your host, and tonight I am speaking with Anna Stone. Anna, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's such a joy. Cannot wait to hear about your experience. So you had a near-death experience, and the anniversary you had mentioned was just recently in the 8th of November. So happy anniversary. 2016. Tell us what happened.
So I've worked as a research scientist for the government on different contracts with Department of Defense, DARPA, for on and off 20 years. Very scientific minded, everything logical, despite having many paranormal experiences in my life and being attracted to tarot and witchcraft and things like that. I still was like, if I can't see it, taste it, measure it, it doesn't exist. So in my opinion, there was no anything after. Like it just didn't resonate with me. I thought it was all hocus pocus, whatever. I had an ectopic pregnancy that ruptured, and I bled out more than half of my blood supply. I joked earlier in the day, I said, God, I'm bleeding so much, I'm gonna die. Like, and I was joking, and then I woke up in the hospital. Um, and I lost like over half of my blood, and I started feeling really sick at one point, and this panic came over me that I cannot. It was I'm gonna For anyone that has done any kind of drugs in their life, I will say that it was basically like you took every drug known to man all at the same time, and it all decided to kick in all at the same time. And this like feeling of intense overwhelm of panic beyond any panic I'd ever felt before came over me. And like just as I was feeling I was going to explode, literally, like actually literally explode, I was no longer in my body. And I just like when you release a balloon in a house and it goes to the ceiling and bounces off the, ceiling, that's what I was doing. I was bouncing like onto the ceiling, and I look down and I see myself there. And I had one epic thought, and it was, that sucks, in my sarcastic tone of voice and everything. And I was like, oh crap, my personality is still intact. Right. Like, so that was apparent. And I'm watching them do CPR, crash cart, and they and then I don't know how to say, it's like time stops, kind of. It's like it was 6 minutes. It was 5 minutes 56 seconds. I was gone, but I it was like forever. If I looked to my right, I was in the hospital room. If I looked to my left, I was somewhere else. In this other like a room. But it's not because I couldn't see walls, but I knew I was in a space that's really hard to describe. Um, and I didn't see any. There was no tunnel. There was no relatives. There was no other people at all. It was just me. and me. But I'll get to that. So I'm watching them. I'm still looking at my body and like what's going on. And they call time of death and they stop. And one of the doctors comments about how I was just like, my records had said I had had a drug addiction previously. And he made a comment about that, like some offhand remark about like a junkie. I didn't even do heroin or anything, but like some, like I was just a drug addict. And they stopped trying, right? I have no, it couldn't have been more than 6 minutes that they were trying. Okay. So I'm like, okay, well, there's that. And then I went to the left. And I'm in the left and I'm in this room, I guess. It's white, like it's glowing, but I can't tell where it's coming from. The light source is coming from, but it was very familiar. I knew exactly where I was, but I had no idea where I was. Um, I thought, oh my God, my kids, right? So the second I thought that, I was transported 210 miles away to Fresno, California, where my oldest daughter, who was 21 at the time, 21 at the time, was taking an exam in her class in college. And I saw her, I saw the time on the wall, I saw what she was wearing, and I was like, she's fine. And then I'm like, my little one, Lucy, who was barely going to be 2, and I see her in the waiting room in the hospital playing Legos. And I'm like, okay. And then that was that. And I went back to the left again. And I was alone, but I wasn't alone. Like, I don't know how to say that. I wasn't scared in any way. And then I saw myself. So I see a version of myself standing in front of me all of a sudden, and she looks like me, but not exactly, but very like a doppelganger situation. And in my mind, she said like one word to me. And that one word was coded with so many messages within it. And it's still unraveling today. But the word was nope. That was it. Nope. And I knew immediately what that meant because I was going back. And so we're huge. Okay, like we're humongous. We're huge. Like we're like I have chills talking about you're everywhere. Like I could see 360 degrees because I don't have a head with bones that is like impeding my vision, but I also don't have eyes. So I don't know how that works. But I could see everything around me in the weirdest way, and I could tell that I was a form of some kind, but not in a body. Like I don't know how to, like that I had a specific density to me, but I was also intermingling with others. It's very hard to describe. But I was huge and I was thinking I'm never going to fit back in that body, right? And so, but I did, and that's when I saw the tunnel. So I saw the tunnel going back in through the belly button, and which was very weird to me because I'd never heard anything about the navel or being any kind of entry point of spirit or something. So I got shoved back in, and it hurt so bad that that's what brought me back to life. So I get shoved in, and I see this tunnel going through, and then it was like if someone's holding your head underwater and you're drowning, like you're just about to take that breath of water in, but you reach the surface at the last second possible and you take this enormous gulp of air in. That's what happened. I shot up, sat straight up, and was like, and everyone in that room freaked out. Like the doctor, the text was like, because they were not even looking at me. They were like doing paperwork and they were not trying to revive me at that point. So I reanimated again.
Wow.
Um, yeah. And I knew I was like, oh my God, like, did you say this, that? And I started asking them if they had said these things, and I was hoping they were going to say no. um, but they were like, how did you hear that? Like, how did you, that you were dead? Like what? And so, yeah. But I had a drinking problem when I went in, and when I came back, I was unable to drink alcohol, like literally physically unable. Like I could not. I tried the next day when I went home, like let me go. I tried to drink a beer, and it just foamed in my mouth, and I couldn't drink it. It made me want to throw up, and so that ended my alcohol addiction. Oh, literally in 6 minutes. I stopped smoking cigarettes. Like I don't know how I've been smoking for 30 years. And I came back with this. un like deniable burning like desire and a need to do things for other people. Like all of a sudden, like I went from not giving a about other people so much, like everything was my drama, my traumas, like whatever, and it went to no, I got to be a teacher. And so I enrolled back in college and I got a job in the next month teaching with no experience as a high school biology teacher. And that's what I was teaching for the past six, since that happened now. And I went back, got my master's. I'm working on now my second master's and my PhD. Like my whole life is completely shifted. Like my entire attitude. Okay, so also I was terrified of religion, right? Like I was brought up in a very religious home, a very conservative home, and I was the black sheep of the family always. And I was always worried that they were right, about this, like, oh, you read tarot cards and you mess with witchcraft, you're going to burn in hell. This experience gave me the biggest freedom I could ever have because I now know for sure that is not my destiny. Like, that is not a thing that I will experience. If people want to believe that, go ahead. Like, I'm not trying to convince anyone. That's my experience. I was so happy about that. It opened so much for me up of this like fear I've been living in for so long about what if they're right? What if? And like being a good person's not enough. Like, really, me reading tarot cards is going to put me in hell. Like, I was so worried about that. And so that shifted. But I was really upset with myself that I didn't focus on my children more when I was on the other side. I thought, what a bad mom I am. Like, I didn't even get upset about it. Like, I was totally like blasé about it, in fact. And so this past years has been a process of getting more messages, so getting more messages from that nope.
Mhm.
And it's so weird because they come random and my all I came back and now I can like hear things that I probably didn't I could hear before, but not as much and as often. I actually went and got tested to make sure I didn't have anything wrong with me. Like from like lack of oxygen to my brain for those 6 minutes. I went to USC here in Los Angeles and I had a psychological assessment done to make sure that I wasn't schizophrenic or whatever. And nope. Um, I just now can hear random stuff. And now like I see much more. So like things changed in that regard too. Um, and it's weird because now I'm just been on this path and like everything I'm doing, there's these synchronicities that happen that show me this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's really interesting. Like just last week, I was studying about soul retrieval from shamanic practices for one of my classes, and I thought, you know what? That's what happened. I died so I could go retrieve parts of my soul that I lost as a child due to trauma. That's why I didn't see anyone else. That's why I didn't interact with anybody else, and that's why I saw me and not anybody else. Like, and I mean, I just have like mad chills just even saying that right now. And like,
Yeah.
and so since then, it's just been a work of uncovering more and more about the reality of me, of being like somebody that can be a scientist in a previous life, literally, and also accept the fact that I have ability to hear people that have passed on and like see them and and record them and like and work with people and contact people for them. Like it's really I would never have admitted this in public before. I would have been too scared to lose my job as a teacher or as a scientist. And now I don't care. I'm like, you know what? I don't care because that's the reality of it. And like, I have this experience like that is documented. There's no, you can't take it from me. So
Mhm.
you don't have to believe it, but
Did you say you had recordings?
yeah,
What kind of
yeah,
recordings?
I do. I have recordings on like on my YouTube or TikTok. I post them because I'm like, please tell me you guys are hearing this also. Like, and they're like people at night calling my name out or asking for help or some like when I'm just sitting here always 3 a.m. too, of course, which is so cliche. I'm doing homework and I just hear, and I'll check my security camera and there it is. And I'm like, dang it. Like it actually still terrifies me. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I, as much as I am not scared of the spirit world. I'm very scared when I'm home alone and they say my name at 3 in the morning and I don't know where they are. Very unnerving for me, but trying to work past that.
So
So yeah, that's my near death um experience.
extraordinary experience. Thank you for sharing that with us. It's really amazing. Wow. I'm just did you come back with a different interpretation of consciousness than going in?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, oh my God. Like that's why I'm in a consciousness studies graduate program now. Like literally, it like I understand. Like my best analogy is that okay, like all our differences, right? All of it, fine. They're valid in a sense. But really, we all need to stop because at the end of the day, everybody is an individual, like an individual droplet of water. But like at the end of the day, together we all form the sea of consciousness. So like, and we're each like we are individual, but we're also part of the hive, so to speak, or the collective. And it's like you got like the things that people are dwelling on and fighting over and stuff is just so small potatoes compared to like the reality of what's out there. It's hard for me to understand that now. Like before, I could get into petty disagreements and arguments with people and fall victim to like trash TV and you know what I mean. Like
Mhm.
I can't anymore. It's like my whole idea of life and the humanity is completely different now.
Had you spoken to family about your experience, like at all? Or you said in public you haven't, but I was wondering if you had, with your
Yeah. Um. So my family was like, that's not, yeah, sure, you were just hallucinating because you died, whatever. And they're taught like, so I had to cut them out. Like, so I have one of the things that I did when I came back was I realized that there are people that I can't change, that there's people are the people that they are, and like sometimes we have to cut ties with toxic um, relationships, including our own family, unfortunately, at times. So after they kind of belittled and like made fun of me about it and stuff. And I was like, I just had this really profound, like, I'm the last person that would be saying this. Like, I was the one that was like, this is nonsense. It's not science. It's not science. And then, you know, yeah. So they didn't, I don't know what they thought it was about. Like, but they were like, oh, come on.
But you
That's
had
just
validations
imagination.
though. You had validations and plus I'm just looking at it from their perspective, right? They understand that you're more scientific minded as well, right? You believe in the scientific method like you mentioned earlier.
Yep.
So I don't know. And that with the validations and the fact that we all know that you were, well, they all knew that you were, you know, obviously deceased at the time.
Yep.
So how would you be able to follow along in conversations if you were not actually alive?
Yeah, that's the
So,
problem is I think it was like I said, I was the black sheep, right? My whole family. So I think they just thought this was another, I don't know what, like, I don't know. I think it was just they didn't like my story. They didn't like that it didn't jive with their Bible, that it didn't jive with like the threats I've been under for decades about going to hell. So I think it had a lot to do with their own bias and not really to do with me at all. I think it's projection on their part.
do you think it's just everybody's going to sort of fabricate their own afterlife?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do. I think that from what I've heard, so after, right, I have much more connection now and I get more answers much more now when I have questions about that situation. I can think on it and something will pop into my consciousness that I is not my own, and I'll be okay. So I asked that, like, okay, so from what I understand is that what your beliefs are, whatever your hardcore beliefs are, is going to be what you see at the beginning to ease you into the situation. Like, so if you are expecting to see Jesus, if you're expecting to see whoever, that is likely what you'll see because otherwise you'd be traumatized by the fact that you're not seeing that. And they don't want you to get stuck right
Mhm.
here or however that happens. So, like, I could see how that would be a thing. Is it kind of trickery? Whatever. I mean, whatever it takes, like, because we have free will, right? We can decide our own beliefs. And so, yeah, I can see how that would be a thing. I wasn't expecting anything. Therefore, I got nothing. But I also know now that it wasn't like this was a pre-plan. It had to have been a pre-planned thing. Like I think I was well aware I was going to be off track at this point in my life, and it was like a reset for me,
Mhm.
literally. And it did. It changed everything. So there's some people though, and I have a group of near-death experience, people that have experienced it too on Facebook. It's really small. It's only like 170 people
Mhm.
for the last 3 years, and it's that way because it's non-religious. We don't like it's people that did not have any kind of iconic religious imagery in there, because we have found that ours get totally attacked like all the time when we talk about it. Well, people will say that we were in hell or whatever, and you know, they'll do that their thing. So I keep a really tight ship there. But then again, actually, because when you become back to your source, when you go back to yourself, like you know stuff. And it's not like an all you don't know everything all at once, but whatever you think on, you know. So if you think about something, it's available for you. So it's not like you all of a sudden are just downloaded with every fact of the universe or whatever. It's like, in my experience anyway, if I thought about something, I got the answer about it. But there's an infinite number of things to think about to get answers for. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, so I'm not sure. Like, I think it would take a minute. The person would have to be like consciously say, well, what about the religion I followed? And then they would get that info, right? I guess. So
Yeah.
I think it could be possible that way. But I think whatever is going to ease you into your new space, the easiest way is probably what they do, whoever they are.
So what were some of the questions that you'd asked?
What's wrong with me? Why didn't I care more about my kids, like being
Right.
orphaned, right?
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
got the answer, which was you knew you weren't staying. Um,
Was there a voice or it was just a knowing?
yeah, no, that was a voice I heard,
Okay.
like my voice.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but it's different. I didn't know until very recently. Like I thought when people were clairaudient or psychic, they were talking to ghosts, they were hearing other people's voices. That's what
Mhm.
I thought. So I'm like, I'm not psychic because I talk to myself all the time in my head and out loud if I'm alone, but it's my voice. Then
Yeah,
there's times
understand.
where you're thinking about something and another thought will pop in on top of what you're thinking about that's completely unrelated and it's loud, like in a loudspeaker
Mm.
over,
Yeah.
in school when the principal comes on making an announcement. I was on a mission. Like I just the other day I asked this question, like, why didn't I see other people? Was it like, and it was like, because that wasn't your mission. Your mission was to see you, to
Mm.
reconnect you. So if I had thought about other people, I would have seen them like I did with my daughters. I was like, oh my God, Ashley, where's she? And then I'm in her classroom. Oh, Lucy, where's Lucy? And I'm in the hospital waiting room. Like I didn't think of anyone else at that time because those are my two kids. Like they're my priority. And then it was over before I could even finish thinking the thought. It was,
You were there.
yeah, that's when I say like we travel at the speed of thought. Like,
Like in a dream. Yeah. It's
but you have control over it.
well, I mean
Like
in a lucid dream rather. Sorry.
yeah. Like not in one of those horrible nightmare dreams you can't get out of. But yeah, it was like, yeah, it was, and yeah, it was just amazing. Like,
Yeah.
and I was everywhere at once, but also centrally. It's
Mhm.
so hard to. When I came back, I was like, wait, did I have a body? I didn't have a body. And like,
Yeah.
these were things that I thought about after. I was hoping that they were going to tell me that the things I was asking were not true
Yeah.
because that would mean it was my imagination,
Mhm.
that it was neurons firing at the time of death. It was, but I'll tell you, oh my gosh, I almost forgot to say. So I figured out what the feeling of panic was also in front of my class of 10th graders teaching biology the next 2 years later. And I'm up there in front of the whiteboard and I'm trying to tell them how this works. And all of a sudden I looked at my writing on the board and I'm like, oh my God, I know what happened. Oh, and I had a moment literally in front of my classroom where I was like, oh my God, I get it. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I couldn't say, I actually needed to excuse myself from the classroom because it was so overwhelming. But I realized that feeling of explosion I was going to have was my body's, every cell in my body synthesizing all of my reserves of ATP and ADP energy. to try to keep me alive at the last minute. It was like a push. And that's that like intense, like I can't even describe it. And it dawned on me while I was teaching my 10th graders. And it was like it was heavy for me to um come to terms with that because I was like, oh wow, that was me feeling my cells working because we don't feel them, right? This totally made me have to reassess how I am with people because one thing I got out of that message, the nope, was that what matters is, and I can't explain how I got it, but it's just this thing that came in like after this happened, where it's like, what matters is how you affect other people around you. Like your life is not as important when it comes to review later
Mhm.
as as is how your life impacted other people's lives. Like, so how my behavior upset somebody because I was rude to them or something. Like that's the kind of stuff that is looked at later. Like, oh, I shouldn't have done this or that. You know,
This has been an extraordinary experience to learn about, and I'm so, so grateful that you decided to come on and talk about it. Thank you so very much for doing this.
of course. Thank you so much for having me.